In 2023, one individual produced 2,400 tons of carbon dioxide. Not a corporation, not a factory, one person, one aircraft, 500 times what the average human emits in an entire year. This is not about luxury. This is about power and the planetary cost of inequality. A private jet emits 5 to 14 times more carbon per passenger than a commercial flight, 50 times more than a train. The mathematics are unforgiving. When a Gulfstream carries one passenger from New York to Los Angeles, the emissions equal what an average person generates in 8 months. Between 2019 and 2023, private aviation emissions increased 46% globally. Fewer than 1 in 10,000 people use private jets, but their flights produced 15.6 million tons of carbon dioxide in 2023 alone. Nearly half of all private flights are shorter than 500 kilometers, some under 100. Trips that could be driven or not taken at all. At current growth rates, this small fraction of humanity is engineering a disproportionate share of atmospheric damage. The question is not whether this matters. The question is why those responsible face no consequence. The top 1% of private jet users each produced emissions equivalent to 500 average people. This is not metaphor. This is measurement. 68% of the world's private aircraft are registered in the United States, a nation with 4% of global population controlling more than 2/3 of private aviation. The 2022 FIFA World Cup drew 1,800 private flights. COP28, a climate conference, generated 644 private flights producing 4,800 tons of carbon dioxide. Climate leaders arriving by the most polluting transport mode to discuss planetary limits. A single billionaire's annual aviation emissions can exceed those of entire small nations. The ultra-wealthy are not participating in the climate crisis. They are engineering it. And they do so while billions face floods, droughts, and displacement caused by the systems they control. This is the architecture of inequality rendered in jet fuel and carbon. When a billionaire purchases a private jet in the United States, they can deduct 100% of the cost in year one. Under the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, a $50 million aircraft purchase becomes a $50 million immediate write-off for business use. The rules are designed around interpretation. If the jet is used primarily for business, the entire cost disappears from taxable income. A private jet flying from New York to Los Angeles pays $525 in fuel tax. Commercial passengers on the same route pay $3,900. Private jets use 15% of air traffic control resources but pay less than 2% of the taxes that fund the system. Commercial airline passengers subsidize private aviation to the tune of more than $1 billion per year. In 2024, the IRS announced audits targeting private jet tax deductions. Senators called the loopholes egregious, but legislation stalled. The political will to close these gaps does not exist, because the beneficiaries are also the donors. This is not taxation. This is wealth transfer disguised as policy. In the United States, private aircraft can be registered through shell companies, trusts, and opaque ownership structures. The Federal Aviation Administration does not require disclosure of who actually controls the aircraft, only the legal entity on paper. Government investigations have documented this vulnerability repeatedly. Drug cartels using US-registered jets to traffic narcotics. Sanctioned individuals hiding assets through anonymous companies. A 2024 Government Accountability Office report identified private aircraft registered to shell corporations later discovered in transnational drug operations. The majority of private jet owners operate legally, but the system is designed to obscure accountability. While commercial passengers face invasive screening, private jet passengers bypass most security protocols entirely. No TSA checkpoints, no public manifests, no transparency. Congress passed the Corporate Transparency Act in 2021 to address anonymous ownership. Implementation remains incomplete. Until ownership becomes visible, the system remains vulnerable to those who use opacity as strategy. Private aviation safety has improved significantly. Business jets operated by reputable charter companies maintain strong safety records. In 2024, charter operators recorded one fatal accident among thousands of flights. Fractional operators maintained their decades-long record without fatalities. But general aviation, which includes many private flights, shows 25 times higher accident rates than commercial aviation per flight hour. The safety debate, however, is a distraction. Private jets are not unsafe. They are inequitable. The ethical problem is not mechanical failure. It is a system where a fraction of 1% can emit 500 times more carbon than billions of others without consequence. Safety standards do not address planetary limits. Regulation does not address fairness. In November 2022, 700 activists occupied Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. 13 private jets grounded for 6 hours. In January 2025, Greenpeace activists symbolically confiscated private jets at Davos. Attached 2-meter inflatable chains with messages, "Tax the super rich." That same week, private jet traffic to Davos increased 170%. Over 1,000 additional flights. Policy responses have been limited. France banned short private flights between cities with train alternatives. The Netherlands proposed restrictions. The European Union debated taxation. In the United States, proposals for increased fuel taxes and reduced depreciation benefits failed to advance. The backlash is growing, but so is private aviation. Emissions continue to rise faster than regulation. The question is whether political systems can regulate the class that funds them. Not all private aviation serves leisure. Medical evacuations, disaster response, remote access for essential services. These uses represent a fraction of total flights, but they matter. Private jets account for less than 2% of aviation's carbon footprint. Aviation itself is 4% of global emissions. The industry points to sustainable aviation fuels and carbon offsets as solutions. But SAF remains expensive and limited in supply. Offsets often lack verification and permanence. These are incremental measures within a system designed for growth. The counterargument is economic. Private aviation creates jobs, supports manufacturing, enables business efficiency. But efficiency for whom? At what cost? Private jets are not the largest source of emissions, but they are the most visible symbol of who writes the rules. A world where 500 people can emit more than 500 million. Where subsidies flow upward. Where transparency is optional. Where planetary limits apply to everyone except those who can afford exemption. This is not about banning private jets. This is about whether democracies can regulate concentrated power. The ultra-wealthy do not operate within systems. They create them. And until that changes, the climate crisis will remain what it has always been, a crisis of power, not technology.